Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Identity Library. My name is Veronica Becher, and today again with Abdullah Najjar, my favorite guest on my podcast. And yeah, feel special.
I feel special.
And today, it's actually like a special, really relaxed, chill episode where I always wanted to reflect on the last year and just. I do this thing, it's called the end of the year questions that I started through pen polling. And it's this old lady that lived, I think, in Oklahoma who suggested to do an email exchange across the world with people that love pen polling. But instead of... Sorry, my voice was just gone for a second. Instead of sending a letter, actually sending an email, because you could reach more people maybe. I don't know. She just wanted a different exchange. And so she created this whole construct of 100 questions that you answer to reflect on your past year. Basically, I decided to modify it, and I did answer the questions, but I think a lot of the questions are really personal. So so I came up with this mini questionnaire that is only made for podcasters.
Nice.
And I think, that's why Abdullah is again here in the studio. And I think it's just something if you're sitting at home and you're feeling oh, I know, but we're already 2 months into this year, whatever, you can still do that, and you can still ask questions and reflect. I think reflection, especially towards your past year, is really important. I don't know if I can stress enough about the ability of understanding what did you learn, what did you go through last year, and how much did you actually learn. I think it changes a lot your perspective on your experience as a whole. If you had a lot of negative experiences, I think people would remember them the most, and oh, I had a horrible year, but they forget about all these funny moments that you experienced last year. So yes, sorry, that was a long introduction, but we're getting into it.
That's useful.
How dare you? So we're starting with the beautiful icebreaker. Who didn't listen to this, the other episode? I don't know when this is going to be dropped. But basically how to start a conversation with a stranger. We're just going to dive into it and hope that Abdullah is not going to fall asleep like he did today in the library.
That I did.
And we're not even at finals week or something like that.
Right. I was surprising myself too.
This man is I'm an old man who goes to the gym to be youthful and then falls asleep in the library.
Let's not talk about your gym experiences either.
My? What do you mean my gym experience? My gym experience was super productive. I had a full edition for 3 hours. I stretched. I ran literally, 2 miles.
Oh.
I stretched again. I'm serious. I had a good experience.
This was productive.
It was productive.
Yeah. Your experience was productive.
I know. I didn't even remember the fact that the gym closes early, and I was literally 20 minutes in, and they were actually already closing everything down, but they didn't even think to check the, changing rooms, and I was just getting out of my shower and everything. I'm it's so quiet, strange, right? So strange and odd. But yeah.
Oh my God.
Reflection of the last year. So, are you ready? Okay, let's start with a broad question. What are some of the highlights from the past year? Let's start with personally. Give me the top 3 highlights.
Gosh.
And to be fair, we didn't prepare that, so it might be actually...
No, that's... even in the last conversation, we didn't prepare. we don't... Maybe we say, okay, this is a theme we explore, but we don't prepare what we're going to say.
Yeah, but I think end of the year questions might take a while too. So...
Okay, well... Let me ask you this first before I answer. How many do you have? Because our answers can go for long.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Don't think too much.
Yeah, we're not going to think about it. So 3
Do
highlights, you said? Don't think. So you said 3 highlights, right?
Yes.
Okay.
personally.
Oh gosh. Okay. First one, a breakup, New Year's Eve.
You broke up last New Year's Eve?
Yeah, I did.
Oh my gosh! I forgot about that. This is crazy. I don't know
Your
why.
reaction is priceless, by the way.
Well,
oh my god.
to be fair, oh my gosh, that was such a long, and I just got into. I was halfway through my relationship by the time you broke up. This is crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that happened.
I love how it's a highlight. like,
well,
like,
a highlight
but-
can be anything. You
No.
said personal. Down light? Is that what we're looking for? High and down? Like,
Okay, it's okay. Continue.
okay.
So highlight number 1 personally. We're talking about
oh
like
yeah.
personally things.
Yeah, it was a very committed one, but it happened.
How long did it last?
This is for like 2 years.
Okay, committed. Continue.
So that happened. And second highlight would be I would say I lost a lot of weight.
Speaking of gym, this is my
Yeah.
difference. If you are wondering how this person is losing a lot of weight, he's apparently sleeping and taking naps, so he doesn't have to move after the gym session at all. So he's like, first of all, he always leaves his gym bag in the studio.
Oh no.
If you ever see on campus him running around with a huge bag, you know who it is. You don't even
Huge
know.
bag.
You don't even need to know who this person is. You just know it is just one person on this campus.
Just running around with a gym bag every day.
Yes, it looks like he's like literally carrying a
Corpse?
Yes. This is how big it is.
Or a bag with so much money.
Or maybe he's literally just like homeless and he's just carrying his whole
His entire
life.
life in the bag.
What he probably is, to be fair, because he was actually living like on a couch these past 2
Couch
weeks.
surfing. But I
between-
clean and I cook and I do everything.
Honestly, to be fair, if you ever feel like I'm gonna drop in the link, like in the bio, his number. If you ever need someone to couch surf, you can call him up and then be like, hashtag how to approach a stranger. You just call them.
Couch surfing.
Like, hey, you wanna icebreaker number 1? You wanna, live on my couch for a day or 2 or more? And then he actually will make you eggs in the morning. It feels like you're a married couple, even though you're not even dating. It doesn't matter what gender, so it's open to anyone. Just saying, disclaimer. He also
thought about it.
he also loves to switch between different apartments. So he switches in the same building that he doesn't even live in, between 2 different floors, up and down. And this is
I
his
like
new
to spice things up, you know what I'm saying?
and you will never. Well, the only thing is you might need to provide him with some eggs in the morning so he can actually cook them. So you need to have
Let
them in
me
your
cook.
yes.
Let me cook.
Yes, but he will make you tea and it's perfect. This is like, well, maybe he will boil the water for you. and you will like have some great company over, and he will like sleep on your couch really. He doesn't snore, so that's a good thing.
Is that a good thing?
Of course, you don't.
Oh my.
You're not snoring. I haven't heard you.
I actually like that because now I can sleep like a ninja.
On a pink couch that used to be pink. Okay, we're like sidetracking.
Yeah,
This is
we
crazy.
said 3 highlights, right? Okay.
What is your highlight? This is a highlight that I will
No,
mention next year.
Next year,
When we're
couch
gonna do
surfing.
the highlights of the year, and couch surfing is gonna be one of them, unless you
Yeah.
can top it. I don't know yet.
That
but-
took a turn. Okay, so so honestly, no, I really lost a lot, and I remember I had a lot of remarks by many people, like saying, "Man, you kind of look way leaner than what I used to what I'm used to seeing you in."
Is that a good thing?
I
Okay.
think it was not Oh, we're gonna start something entirely different about this
Yes,
body
but
image.
I still need to drop it because honestly, I'm not a big fan when people do that. That's like the worst thing. That's like one of the things we should have mentioned in a different episode we talked about. Things you should not
say to a person.
Physical appearance, like weight specifically. Oh my gosh, please don't do that.
Yeah, I didn't really. That was not one of my best sort of. I didn't.
Well, it can be nice. I think if you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to gain weight, it can be a nice thing to hear confirmation. But I think it's a bias towards yourself because if people don't see it, you think nothing happened, right? So you kind of associate with your achievements don't equal a real achievement if no one noticed that and points it out to you. And the moment people actually reverse to the opposite what you actually want to hear, you start questioning your body image. Bad thing. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I really didn't like many of these remarks. I mean, yeah, it's obvious. Yeah, I did, but I think there are many ways of trying to phrase that, or if you have to make a remark about it, like, if it's necessary. So that happened, and I did. Yeah, I did lose a few pounds.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I will buy you flowers and chocolate.
Oh my goodness.
So we can, do you know the amount of times? So the thing that I didn't mention about the couch surfing thing, and it's this whole thing of me feeding him German chocolate. I went back home over Christmas break and I brought back some chocolate and cheese. No one heard me saying that. I hope I still can extend my visa. But basically, everyone was judging me at first last year when I returned with chocolate. They were like, why would you get the same brand of chocolate from Germany while you can buy it here? And I'm like, you don't understand. It doesn't taste the same way. I swear it doesn't. So I'm feeding him chocolate.
You're trying to get me to gain weight.
When people have like an obsession with people being like a certain weight. Yes. I'm just feeding him like, no, of course not. Do you know how much it means to me to give you chocolate? That means you're like one of my closest people, because this is like the only chocolate package I have like at home right now. It's like if it's gone, it's gone. Today I ate my last slice of cheese and it's still set.
Oh no, that last half, the one I sort of may have eaten, the other half, like
for your ex, potentially yes.
You show up to my apartment, you sleep in my couch, you eat my cheese,
my German cheese,
my German cheese. Oh my god. Okay.
But yeah, basically yes. I'm just saying, if you want to get rid of some good German chocolate, you could also invite him over. But it's this whole thing like, oh no, I shouldn't. You should see Abdullah. It's so endearing. It's endearing. I'm using this word. I love it. It's just like, oh, I'm just gonna eat a piece of chocolate, or like I even brought back like some Lebkuchen, what is gingerbread. And it's like these small mini gingerbread bites, and he's sitting there. He's like, okay, let's eat another one. And then I'm like, do you want another one? And I give it to him. And like in the span of the next hour while watching a movie with me, he's like, no, I should not accept another one. I think I'm too full. And he ate, I think, 3 more. After I gave it to him, and he rejected it, but then he like came back to the package and I was like, maybe I'm gonna eat another 3 because I think they're really good.
Oh my God. I postponed it. I put it on the wait list.
Yes, because your body is like, oh, it doesn't count. You haven't eaten any chocolate in the last 30 minutes, so it doesn't count. It's just an addition to your diet. God.
But that's the thing. I should really cut down on. I eat chocolate every day, I think, now. It's becoming a bad habit.
I don't think it's a bad habit. Yeah. People drink alcohol every single day, and it has more calories than your chocolate bar sometimes.
That makes a lot of sense. But so...
Speaking of alcohol, Abdullah, bad.
Okay, sorry, ma'am. So here's the deal. Let me break it down. Let me cook. So I think that's one of my biggest ones. This weight sort of loss / fluctuation, because I think for the longest time I was even growing up, I was a pretty chubby kid. I was a really chubby kid. And, I never had, even my father was very critical of these. Like for most of my life, he was very critical and very verbal about this. So I think at this stage of my life, I think I am the leanest I've ever been, which is strange, very strange for me to say. But I think this is, yeah. So this is a highlight, I think, of this year.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the middle. I'm not the heaviest I've been ever in my life, but I'm also not the lightest. It's something in between. And I think it's actually good and bad. It's like my conscience can work with that. Yes, I've been much thinner, but I'm in a space where I like eat regularly. I eat enough. I eat not as unhealthy. I move enough. It doesn't feel like I'm in the extreme.
Yeah, it's a good balance, right? It's good balance.
But yeah, third highlight.
Third highlight. Would starting a podcast count? I mean, it's not a professional thing; it's a personal thing.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, fine. Let's keep it.
Well, yeah, that I would characterize maybe as third highlight of the year.
What's the name of the podcast? Let's go. Let's drop it.
It's called In the East Wing.
Exactly. You better check it out. It's a good one.
Thank you.
Actually, a good one.
Thank you. I had a very, I think, really nice conversations with a variety of interesting people. And funny enough, my first episode, which was, I think, released in September, it was with a war journalist whose book, one of her books, I found in this secondhand bookstore that's near our campus, just randomly. Just found her book. And I've only found it like recently, like a couple of months ago. And I read it and I really enjoyed it. And I reached out to her just right after I finished a book, and I told her how much I enjoyed reading it and how much I enjoyed our conversation on the podcast. She was my first. So I sent her that first guest. So I really appreciated her, and she sent me a really nice reply and telling me that she's gonna now teach, which is something that she hasn't done for a while or something that she's not used to doing. And it's sort of a new journey, a new start, and it was nice to hear back from someone that I've had on a show but haven't been in contact with, just to know how their lives are going right now.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
No, actually. Okay. Since it's an exchange thing and I even talk anyway too much on my podcast episodes, my highlights, personal highlights, what did I do last year? I love how you were like prepared better than I was for my questions.
It's fine.
For my questions, wait, what year are we? 2024. What year am I? Sorry, I was like counting down. Like, when did I move? But I moved before that, so it was a year before that. Did I move to the United States? Okay, I'm gonna copy you. Like, literally, I started my podcast. Identity Library.
Yes, I was going to ask you to drop the name.
It's been running, and I was also interviewed for the first time in my life by the span, by you. Oh my gosh, by you. This is what triggered my podcast to even, get released, and I think it's one of the biggest probably achievements for me, because it's just, I don't know, something that I feel like I'm passionate about, and I get, yes, there are people that don't like it, but a lot of also positive reviews. And for some reason, my podcast is the definition of listening to it while being in a car. It's becoming like actually a theme. And it's okay. It's going to be the car podcast. And I truly enjoy it, because I think the conversations, even with the recurring guests, I feel like there's so many conversations that I have with people where I'm like, oh, I would love to record that. This is something that it feels like a diary almost to myself. It's not even about, this sounds bad, it's not about the listener itself too. It's also about me keeping certain conversations and tracking them for me to come back to them and actually listen to, what did I say? And when I encounter the same issues that I address on my podcast, I can actually listen to the same stories that I told someone, and be like, okay, so this is how I approach it. What else? I got into a fellowship program.
Oh yes, Caldwell Fellow. I love that.
Yes. By the way, a semifinals and finals is like approaching or like running right now. It really depends when this episode drops, but super excited, but super happy. I think that was a big thing. And yeah, I think it shifted a lot in my life because I end up meeting a complete new class with 30 people, and it's just the whole network and the dinners, and I got involved through that to volunteer at the so-called neighbor to neighbor community center, and I am planning the dinner seminars for each month. And I don't know, I feel like I've been doing a lot of things through that program, and I think it's just really beneficial just to connect me closer to the community and also like get something out of it as a leadership program for myself. A different highlight. I feel like they're like the obvious answer, and there's something that is not the obvious answer. Probably the not obvious answer that I think I would like to actually share is I have this little plant in my room that is a desert rose, and I got it from a professor at the horticulture science department. And I decided actually last semester to take up the minor in horticulture science, to add a minor that is completely off like my educational field. And I know this feels like a professional thing, but no, it's not. Because she actually convinced me by giving me a random plant that looked super funny. It's literally a really thin stem, and there's not even one leaf on it. And my highlight is that last semester, oh my gosh, if I tell people that are actually plant breeders at that and like that love plants, they would be really disappointed with me, because what I did, I poured my my tea into the plant.
Wow.
and basically it was an herbal tea, okay? To be fair, there was no sugar, no milk in it, and I'm not saying that that's something you should do. But I was just thinking, let's make an experiment. And apparently, I don't know, my plant actually loved it. And now I have like, I think 10 different leaves on top. And I discovered what is kind of more this year, that I have a adventitious root coming out. So it's like a random like leaf like growing out of a place that it wouldn't usually grow. And it's like literally on the bottom next to the soil. And it's like this huge plant that is probably, I don't know, it's like if you take the elbow to like your hand, like this is how high my plant is at this point, I think, almost. And it's just like it looks like a mini palm tree, and I'm super excited. My mom, when she asked me about this plant, I get super excited that I just managed to keep this plant alive in my room. And also just like all my plants that I have in my room just give me so much joy.
Oh,
this
my
is
gosh.
really random. Highlight of the year. Okay, 3 highlights, professional highlights.
Oh gosh, professional highlights.
Did I mention 3 things?
You did.
Yes,
You did,
sorry.
Yeah.
That was... Ignore me. Go ahead.
Oh, let's see. Professional highlights. Like academic also. Gosh, that's an interesting one. Well, I'm going to mention a course that I think I really, really enjoyed taking. That got me quite invested in even after I took the course in learning more about history. That was the history of the Atlantic slave trade, or slavery in the slavery in the Americas. So I took that course because of my. So I was up in Washington, D.C. over the summer, and if you've listened to other episodes that you and I have recorded, that Veronica and I recorded, you might have heard a couple of stories from perhaps my time there and Veronica's nice visits that she paid over the summer.
Super spontaneous and
Yeah.
terrifying ones, I think, too.
Very.
Abdullah, who's a really planned out person, and I discovered my spontaneous side of calling someone up 2 hours before the flight and mentioning that you're potentially coming over.
That was insane.
No.
But so I was there for a while, and I lived in Fairfax, Virginia, and it has a lot of history with slavery and the institution and the laws and all these things. Virginia is quite infamous for that. So I think my time there sort of pushed me toward a desire to want to take a course on the history of slavery. And sure enough, I did. And it was my favorite course last semester. And I wrote something really, really interesting as like a final paper that they called a historiography. And I've never written a historiography before in my life. It was just my first time. I was really nervous, but I was really just well invested, really, really invested in it. And it was about the evangelical community's view on slavery in the U.S. And I received one of my best, I think, reviews on a paper where the professor literally said, like, you really know what you're talking about. And I remember I wasn't even aiming for like an A. I wrote it with no grade sort of expectation. I just really wrote it because I wanted to write it and I was really invested in it. And I did receive an A on it and receive an A on the course. And sort of that kind of kept me on a track of really reading more about African history and the history of the institution of slavery, both in the U.S. and in Latin America. So I think that's kind of a good highlight. Another highlight would be, I think my internship would be an interesting highlight because it had me connect with a lot of interesting individuals in either in the corporation, the media corporation I worked for, or even outside of it. And it was an experience with, obviously with its ups and downs. It wasn't the perfect experience, but it was, there's a learning curve. And, let's see, third professional highlight.
I could also like what you think. I can add mine. So we're doing like you can think.
Well, I think I can just say that I attended a lot of nice conferences over the fall. Those were really, really good. I got to meet people from backgrounds that sort of I'm very interested in, like special operations guys, people from the military, and I remember in one of these conferences we had like an open bar type of thing, and I remember I was looking at the menu and I was like, I'm gonna go for the most expensive drink, and sure enough I went for the most expensive one, and I really enjoyed that drink. And then I ended up getting a ride with a professor from our anthropology department. He gave me a ride from Chapel Hill to here. And
I remember the story. It's just like, ooh,
Yeah.
that was the story.
that was really fun. And we sort of became good friends afterward. So, yeah, it was nice.
I'm thinking, so for me, it's actually pretty simple. My GPA went up. I was fighting for my GPA. So I think I feel like I finally reached this point where I'm like picking up things really well in my degree and actually understand concepts and I can connect things better than I used to be.
Mhm.
Used to be? Used to.
Used to.
Used to
Yeah,
be is crazy.
It's all good.
Getting a Counselor of the Year award through the so-called camp named Satellite. I think that's a professional growth thing of being such a good counselor.
You are.
Thank you. Also my internship. I worked for an engineering company as like a switch up called Hitachi Energy, and I think it was a great experience because I was doing a lot of different things, and I think the biggest highlight that actually I associated specifically with Hitachi Energy was my random conversation with a customer that I ended up having in a restaurant downtown. And my whole team was too busy to go to this after work event and they just didn't end up going. And it was funny because it was only our partners, kind of like she's the intermediate person between the customer and our company, but she works for our company. And the customer itself, we were only 3 people that end up showing up. And it was such an interesting night because for the first time in our life, the reason why we connected was because we both liked philosophy.
Gosh, whew.
And we talked about philosophers for the next literature for the next 3 hours. I think we stayed super long in this restaurant, and it was one of the greatest experience I had because I realized for myself how much it's important to see people, even in the business world, as just people.
Oh, 100%.
I think what annoys me sometimes and makes it difficult is people only talking about their business. They talk only about what they're doing, their job, their position, how they got there, etc., etc. But I think I realized that I have to approach even professional settings with a sense of myself too. Like I feel like a lot of times when I approach someone who is a professional in a certain like company that I'm interested in, I get actually super nervous. And the reason for that is that it feels like I can't be myself around them because I can't get in my jokes and I need to be serious and I need to be sophisticated and I have to be a certain way to approach them. And I mention, how we always learn these elevator pitches and how we approach, and you have your CV and everything. And I don't like it because it just feels so unauthentic. It feels like I'm studying to approach a human being that I just want to have a conversation with and I'm interested in the company. But it feels like such an dehumanizing experience where I like study almost for it to approach someone in a certain way. And I don't know, I want to know what the company is like, but all I ask is literally, okay, what is your company doing? Something you can Google. Like, it is sometimes important. Sometimes you don't know the company, right? But I realized if I want to have a mutual, like a good connection with the person, it's not about all the technical aspects of an interview that you go through, but rather being yourself and open and actually bringing yourself to the table with your own jokes. And of course, you're not going to I feel like Hitler is just too often in my episodes at this point. Of course, you're not going to make a dark joke or an inappropriate joke in front of a person like that. But it also doesn't mean that you can't make a joke.
Something lighthearted, something that
Yes.
can uplift the mood, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the last, like, probably highlight when it comes to professional life experience and understanding that at the end of the day, we're just human beings. And I feel like the most successful conversations I have with or had with any professional person was literally the ones where I was just myself and I made some random remark and then the person liked it actually. Okay, so how do you feel your podcast has grown or changed over the past 12 months?
Hasn't been 12 months, but let's see.
True.
But
true,
since it launched, maybe I think is maybe a
Yes.
description. How has it evolved or changed? Gosh, I think lesson I learned was even though my approach from the get-go was to allow for more for my guests to talk more and reveal a lot of their stories, because obviously the demographic that I'm targeting, uh, these people have so much to unpack, and I think my desire from the beginning was to be outside of was to allow them to be the center of attention, and I speak to the I would just speak very little, you know. But over time, I realized that I should talk to more and bring up more things from my experience, and to maybe not create the perfect balance where my guest and I are speaking at the same rate, but to pitch in some more. And I think it's proven to be quite useful.
That's so interesting though, because I feel like that's what I criticize about my own podcast. That I bring too much of myself into it. That I'm interviewing someone, but I feel like I tell so many of my own stories. And I always looked at your podcast as like okay, so Abdullah's not saying so much. I should talk less. But I don't know. I feel like I realized over time that it's my podcast in the end of the day. Yes, I want to know the other person's perspective. And yes, there's certain things about it. But I think the way you react and what you contribute to the conversation makes the other person feel also more comfortable.
Yeah, but it's like you know when to do it. When do I keep along? Should I pursue this line of questioning, and when should I start mentioning something that is not actually a question? Like maybe I can give you an example from maybe my last episode, and I'm sure you understand this because you're also a host and you know these things already. But I remember when my guest talked about the uh, the idea of loneliness and how some people desire maybe attention or really truly desire company. He mentioned a story of someone that he trained with that not so many people wanted to be around, but he chose to be around that person and realized that that person was actually very lonely and really just wanted company. And when my guest finished that story, I told him that, I have a story that I can maybe share with you that sort of sheds light on a very similar theme that you just highlighted. And then I shared that story. And he liked that story. He really liked it. And then he started commenting on it. And he mentioned something else about it, about his opinion, obviously. But I think when you know, right? You know when to sort of maybe mention something that ties to what the person said, or you know when to continue along the line of asking these series of questions that you might not already have perhaps come up with, but spontaneously they start to emerge, and you're curious to know what the person has to say about it. But it really is contextual. Although like I mentioned, I don't want an equal rate of speaking especially with my podcast. I wouldn't want my guests to speak 50% of the time and I speak the other 50. I want to keep it sort of maybe 70-30, or maybe 80-20. And, that's just the way I see it. But maybe you have something to say about that.
Nope, that's something I'm working on. And I'm not really doing a great job, but it's okay. I think that's okay. I think, well, for me, I started my own podcast. I think what I see is a theme, people that come back to my podcast that are like asking me, hey, I would love to get like another episode recorded. Um, I realize I'm doing something similar that you've done with your previous podcast that you had on WKNC, with like network effects. People recommend you to someone else, and then you continue walking this path, and it feels like I'm in these circles. But what I want to do, and maybe that's kind of tying down to what I want to do my next semester, is kind of getting out of these circles and also interviewing people that are not in my circles as much. Just to kind of get new things in. But I think it's really difficult sometimes to find people too. Surprisingly, like, I think the challenge I face is just you find people that you truly enjoy as people, but you would not interview them for anything because I don't know what topic I would even bring up with them. There's like people that reach out to me and I'm like, oh, I would love to, but actually I wouldn't know what I would address with you. And then other times I know someone, I'm like, oh, there's something I would love to discuss with you because we talked about it. And that's why I approached them. I'm like, I would love to have an episode with you. And the challenge of probably like of scheduling things with people. I'm a spontaneous recorder, and it's really bad for a podcast business because you need someone who like people want to be prepared, right? They want to know what they are doing and getting themselves into. My issues, though, that I think a podcast, especially as being the moderator, takes a lot of energy in a strange, different way than being interviewed. Because being interviewed, you also get exhausted by it. But I think being the moderator, you're kind of in charge of the conversation, so you have to pay attention to everything completely, and you're the one leading. And I think I need a lot of energy to lead on a conversation for an hour and a half.
Oh, it definitely takes a lot of energy. No, I get it. Sometimes I notice myself when I'm done, I'm just extremely hungry. So
Me too.
hungry.
I always am hungry. Oh my gosh, I thought I'm crazy.
No,
like who needs the gym? That's the reason, by the way, why he actually lost weight. It was podcast recording.
Because of the podcast.
If you want to actually join the podcast episode, you can reach out to either of us, and that's the reason.
But you know what's funny? I remember one time when I was hosting before I even came to NC State, I was hosting another podcast, and I got COVID. And my friend remarked and said, you know, you podcasted so hard that you got COVID.
That's actually super funny.
I remember I still have an image. I was on a wheelchair and they took an image of me. That wasn't the best image. But yeah, friends be friends. Okay. What number is it on the list? Because our audience doesn't know it.
There's no number.
Oh, okay. Audience doesn't know it's almost midnight.
Just can't mention that. 1 minute away. What was the most valuable piece of feedback you received? And how did it shape your content?
Oh
I was a creative.
That's so good. That's a good one. Ooh. Best feedback I received. Gosh. Okay, I have two things to say actually about that. The first came from a guest I've had. I think it was the title of the episode is Shadow Wars and Black Ops. So if anybody wants to check it out, they can. But my guest reached out to me after we finished the interview, and he said that he really enjoyed our conversation, and that my voice made the interrogation smooth. So he put air quotes on interrogation. So I was like, I really that was a really, really nice compliment of his. And in that email, he sent me so many pictures from his background, and he explained, he gave me, he shared the stories behind every picture that he shared. And he was, for context, he was a former paramilitary operations officer with the CIA. He's been all over the world, and he's done so many things. And so he was I could truly feel that this person actually enjoyed this by the way he wrote that email and the things he shared post-production, obviously, or post the recording. So that was one. And another compliment I received was, it came from our beloved Jamie, and she said, you should probably read audiobooks as a bedtime stories. Because she was like, you're really good at making, making the guest feel comfortable in a way.
This is so sweet. Like actually, it's really sweet. Hmm. I'm thinking, what is something that I got as a valuable like feedback?
Well, let me tell you something you told me that somebody said that I totally agree with about your podcast.
Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead. Okay.
I remember it was someone who told you that one of your episodes, it really felt like when listening to it, it felt like we were in the room with you. Just because how genuine and just like very very relaxing, and it just felt like you were there. You were present. You know what I mean? And I agree with that person. It really felt like true description. Like it really felt like we were in the room with you guys as you were speaking.
This is crazy. I'm getting like my own compliments reflected to me through the other person in my room. That's crazy. Yeah, it is one of the things that I probably like really enjoyed. I think one of the best, let's say, compliments that people told me were like especially when it shifted something, when people reflected on something that like I love when people send me like messages when they like Abdullah, for instance. He's one of these people. He like breaks it down completely, like my episodes, and he gives me like a full in depth, like he's writing an essay that he's gonna publish the next year, and then have a whole like research symposium about it, about each part of my episode. And I think even like honestly, you're sitting in a room, but I think so many times you, or at least I encountered this imposter syndrome of like, is my podcast even good enough to be published somewhere? Like, do people listen to it at all? Like, is it reaching anyone? Is it good enough? Is it like quality wise, is it good enough? Because most of the conversations are really casual. They're really like non-scripted, authentic, what is a good thing. But then I never know if it has enough quality for people to wanting to listen to it, because I think when you think of podcasts, specifically really professional ones that are really successful in the market, usually people invite professionals into the like studio. And you do too. You invite a lot of people that know what they're talking about. And yeah, what I do is like invite people that are just students, like really. And I think the concept fits, right? My podcast, but I think I really truly appreciate when people recognize me, or like when they point out something they liked about my episode. And I think one of the best things that I've heard from one of my friends was, when is the new episode coming out? I think that's just, I think this person was like constantly reminding me to post episodes.
I love that.
And to actually publish them. And I think that was one of the best things for me. When families listen to it, my mom, she always listens to all my episodes. And I have just like, I have this little circle of supporters that truly appreciate and look forward to it. And I think one of the best things I can hear as a podcaster is like I said, when is the new episode coming out? I listened to your episode. I love it. I recommended it to a friend of mine. Oh my gosh, this is like, it just feels like the weirdest dream ever, but it's a good dream. Like it's so rewarding.
It's just a reminder of your efforts and the dedication you've put into this work.
Yeah. I was thinking, one more. Yeah, I'm thinking that too. Okay. If you could sum up your past year in one word or phrase, what would it be?
Unpredictable. Like truly unpredictable. Like none of the I mean, I can even start from, I mentioned earlier 3 things, right? Highlights. I mentioned a breakup, weight loss, and what was that last thing I mentioned? Like podcast, right? Or maybe we can even add like the internship. Like, surely I didn't predict a breakup. I definitely didn't expect that I was going to be working for that media corporation, because it wasn't on my radar from the beginning. But then I just reached out to the head, just, introducing myself, saying, this is me, I've seen some of your work and all of that. And I ended up getting a position. Unpredictable, I didn't expect that I would start the podcast that I started this past fall. Just, it wasn't even on the radar. And you and I have, just, I remember just reaching out to you saying, hey, I have this idea in my mind. I'm probably going to do this, that. And it became official, and when I came back to school in September. And even the nominations, like, it was never on the radar. My aim was never to, like, have it nominated or maybe potentially even dream about that, So there's a lot of things happening that I didn't expect, and which makes me think about how much of these unpredictable events am I going to encounter this year, or how many of these. So it's really, it just keeps things exciting, I guess.
I think my word would be brief.
Brief.
Not brief in a word that's short.
Mm-hmm.
To breathe. Like the action of breathing.
Oh, breathe. Yeah.
And the reason I think why I chose this specific word is I think my last year was quite eventful, but really emotional. And what I mean by emotional, like, so many things happened. It was really eventful. And maybe I should have chosen eventful, but I didn't, for a reason. Because I think one of the things that always got me through the day was breathing. Like, but I don't mean it in a way of, like, people breathe all the time, but rather whenever I would be really stressed, I would actually, like, I started to completely implement it into my life. I'm not saying meditating. I'm talking about, like, breathing exercises. It would get me through a lot of things. Like, just taking the time for yourself to, like, calm yourself down. I'm not saying it was bad, but I think even feeling overwhelmed was actually, like, a thing. And then the second thing is probably gratitude. I picked up halfway through the year, a little bit earlier than that, gratitude journaling, and I've been actually getting back into it. I took a break, like, the end of the year, and I realized how much it changed my perspective on life. Even though I didn't believe it at first, I was like, well, it's just gratitude journaling. Like, people talk about it all the time. It's like, it feels like a trend. I think someone once dropped to me, like, oh, are there actually people that like matcha, like latte, like the drink, because it doesn't taste good? And I'm like, I actually like it. Like, I genuinely like it without it being a trend. And I think it's the same thing here. I realized how much gratitude journaling helped me through the day, because I do this like a routine thing. It's my morning. This is how I start. And I don't know if I've ever like broken it down to anyone on this podcast, but I've done it countless of times to you. But it's like, it's a really simple concept that you see. This is this notebook that people sometimes will even buy. It's called the 5-minute notebook. You can recreate it yourself, I think. And it's just 3 questions. No, in the morning you do it. 3 things that you're grateful for. 3 things that you're looking forward to. 1 affirmation. And in the evening is 3 things that you loved about the day and 1 thing you've learned. You will be surprised how many things you learn and experience through the day. When I properly do it, I realize that I've had actually much better conversations with people and more highlights than I actually thought. I realize I'm in control of my own emotions. It's not my emotions it's not people that will influence my emotions and how my day will go. If I had a bad encounter with someone, it will not kill me, because I can make my evening actually be a good evening. And then my day will be better. If my morning was good but my evening was bad, well, my morning was good. If it was a bad day in itself, it's just a day. It doesn't change your life. It's not going to change your week. It doesn't change anything in the next 5 hours. it was just a bad day. And I think just with this mindset, living on and just looking at it with this specific mindset, it gets me through the day. And it was probably the reflection of my whole year. Understanding it's just a day. It's there's this, I haven't dropped it in a while, Russian saying, "Куда ночь, туда сон," what means where night goes, there goes the dream. And it's a thing you would say all the time when my mom would tell it to me whenever I would have a bad dream. She would say, where the night goes, there the dream goes. And say it all the time to yourself, and you will have a better dream. And what it means by that is when the night passes, the dream was there and it was a bad dream, but the night is over and a new day started. So now you will not encounter the same bad dream because it's over. It's okay. It's over. It was a night. And the next night will be different because the dream will not repeat itself. It can be, but it's not. That's not what it means. And it's the same thing with the day. One day might be bad, but the next day might be good. And I think that's like probably my biggest reflection of the year, realizing that living day by day in the moment means acknowledging and putting effort into the things that you have in front of you in the moment that you're in right now, currently. Where you put in all your effort and energy that you can and have into the thing that you're focusing on right now in the present. And for once, you don't think about what happened in the past or in the future. You just focus on what you have in front of you. And you do it with so much like passion as you want and can. And it will make even the simplest job that you have in your life probably more enjoyable.
Wow. That's very deep. Gosh.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, last year was good. And I think the podcast was one of the best things that I've ended up doing. And, well, we actually ended up becoming good friends. Actually,
That too,
fun
yeah.
fact,
Funny enough, we never mentioned that.
like, we actually started, like, seeing each other every single day, like, through podcasting, through, like, all these things. And,
yeah. It's insane. Like, I can really... It's funny how... I mentioned unpredictability. Like, I didn't think I would ever, through a podcast, like, become close friends with someone through this platform. But you never know. You know?
I think if you would have told me, like, 10 years ago that I would start a podcast, I would have looked at them, too. Like, what the heck? Like, why? How? How can that work out? So I think it's the same thing for me. I think podcasting was really good, and I will continue doing it for now. And we will see where, life brings me. Yeah, I think that's kind of summing it up. Do you have any, like, last reflections you feel like?
I just think I really enjoy these conversations. I enjoy these podcasts that I do. I like highlighting people's stories. I like hearing about people's stories, and I like having these conversations with you as well. It's really just so many lessons to be learned and so many things to reflect on, especially especially like with podcasting. Sometimes it just might become too robotic, but it's good to sort of take a step back and reflect on, did I really just have this conversation with this person, or did we really just discuss that? Or because even you mentioned, like, I have professionals on the show, I really like when we're in the room together, the virtual room. At the end of the day, they're just humans, and I really appreciate sometimes that they are very invested in even what I have to say. And I'm not of their caliber, perhaps, right? But at the end of the day, we all have, no matter what sort of background we have, we're just humans, and there's a lot to learn from one another.
I think that was really good. kind of reflection ending. Well, I would like you guys to leave with one random highlight that I had last year. And since you're sitting in my studio right now, and my studio is crazy, I was thinking of this one thing that happened when we first started podcast, or like recording podcasts together. And I made this joke, oh, finally, or you made the remark, you're like, finally people know that I actually have a sense of humor. And I was like, yes, finally, because you're going to actually talk about topics you've never actually ever talked on any podcast that you've had. And I realized, like, sometimes don't plan everything in life. That's like a huge lesson, and it's okay, not knowing what happens. Sometimes it just happens, right? And it was just really funny. I think that's just a highlight of itself. And biggest highlight I'll probably mention is we were singing karaoke together.
Oh, that's right.
And there's an existing recording, and every single time when I listen to it, oh my gosh, I could cry and laugh at the same time. It's like, it's hilarious. It's like something that you feel like, when your parents used to have maybe a video recording of you as a kid, and you like watch these like old DVDs, CDs, and whatever it is that you had, and it feels like bittersweet in a good way. And that's how it feels like with audio. What's so funny, because certain audio formats can make you feel so, like you said, like you're sitting in a room and experiencing the same things. And I never thought how powerful just an audio format can be.
Right. Oh, that's right. It's like a print, like a letter. Someone gives you a letter. It sort of lives on forever. There's just words or just audio, but it's just more than that. It's it's way deeper.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming to my podcast again. Super happy to have you here and share kind of some mini insights into the highlight. And well, I hope, dear listeners, you had a wonderful last year, and don't worry, I will continue podcasting, and you will probably too. I don't think that we will stop that fast, and even after graduation and whatever happens, I think we'll still like find a way to
absolutely
that passion of ours. But yeah,
I'm glad you brought me back. It's an honor, really. I enjoyed this. I really did.
That's good to hear. So if you ever want to be on my podcast this semester, please reach out to me and be part of my highlights of this year. And for everyone who was on my podcast last year, thank you so much for being part of it. I truly, truly appreciate any story and conversation that you shared with me and with any listener. And also, thank you so much for any listener. Apparently, like I said, people are listening from across the whole globe, and I get so happy about that. It's fantastic. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for appreciating and valuing this podcast, and I hope to see you, hear from you, whatever happens again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.